begin to prepare to be a caregiver, both formally and informally. And with the right support, you can provide good care while also taking care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is going to ultimately make you providing the care to your loved one or to a friend or family member. It'll ultimately enhance that relationship and that experience for that individual that has dementia as well as yourself. All right, our first question here. For our knowledge check, it says someone who helps a person living with dementia everyday tasks like grocery shopping or managing doctor's appointments can be considered a caregiver. True or false? Um, you guys can definitely enter through the chat if you think that that is true or false. Someone who helps a person living with dementia with everyday tasks like grocery shopping or managing doctor's appointments can be considered a caregiver. I'm seeing some responses coming through that chat. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and mark true. And there we go. True. Caregivers help with activities of daily living and provide emotional support, but also take on tasks like managing money, making doctor's appointments, and more. So what do caregivers do? As a caregiver, it's really common to be able to coordinate transportation. That might mean helping to get to and from appointments, to and from other events as well, helping with organizing medications, or even the medication boxes, taking care of expenses, making food, checking in on all of those conditions, making appointments for them, being a part of their care network and talking to their providers about things that they might need. And then also helping with those activities of daily living, like bathing, toileting, eating, things of that nature. So here in this shot, we have a couple of stats and some information for you. The first one being more than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, and more than 11 million provide unpaid care. That is an extremely high number. So that's 6 million Americans living with the disease, and then twice that amount that are providing that unpaid care, um, which can be extremely stressful, right? And when we don't have the resources that we need. Family members, friends, and or other unpaid caregivers provide the majority of the help to older adults. Family members also have different caregiver roles and some help from far away. I wanted to be able to touch on that one. The first time that I went through this process of dementia and Alzheimer's disease on a personal level, my grandfather had Alzheimer's disease and was in Roanoke, Virginia. So my mom and some of our family members were in Roanoke, and I was in St. Louis, but I became a virtual caregiver um, where I spent a lot of my days where I was going to school, I was in college, going to class. We would stay on Skype because it was calming to him and he knew who I was. And so I operated like a caregiver in that space for him. So it's very common. And it's a great way to be an added help to your family during that time. Although 64% say that caregiving is stressful, 92% say it's very rewarding. And I think that I would definitely agree with that. It can be rewarding. It is an honor to be like a part of that process with that individual and um, knowing that they had trusted you, with this responsibility, or even if it was by surprise to be a part of that process, can definitely be rewarding and have some additional benefits. So this next part is changes caregivers may experience. So the first is going to be looking at taking on new roles. Um, when somebody is diagnosed with this disease, there comes a time where a decision has to be made as to who is going to take on certain responsibilities as that individual's cognitive abilities start to decline. So that may mean we have one family member that might be better at taking care of like getting the house clean, taking care of house services, lawn services, routine things like making sure that equipment in the house is up to date. And somebody else may be the one who goes and gets groceries. There may be someone different who does all the appointments. But it depends, of course, on who is available and what everybody is willing to do to pitch in to provide that care. So having conversations about future plans to put in place um, is going to be very, very important. You want to make sure that these plans are put in place very soon, especially after the diagnosis has been given. Um, Include the person that is living with dementia in these conversations if it's possible. I can tell you that when it's come down to a loved one that I have who is currently going through some of these concerns, from time to time, they come back into moments of lucidity where they seem like they're in real time with me. They understand everything that I'm saying to them. And in those moments, they may make requests, or I may use that time to ask questions. What do you want me to do with this? What would you prefer? And it really does help to be able to get their opinion and their thoughts. And of course, if you can get those opinions and thoughts of what they would prefer, um, prior to a diagnosis, that's even better. But we definitely want to make sure that we include them as much as possible within reason. So another change that you may experience as a caregiver is relationship changes. During this time, providing this care is so demanding that it takes a toll on your time, right? So you're not going to have as much time for family or friends. Um, they may be the ones who pull away. I think that that's important to acknowledge as well. This disease process, it affects everyone differently in that circle. So there are some people that may not be able to handle being a part of the support when it comes down to, how they're processing that news and that information. But then we also have others who are ready to go, who are bulldozers, who can get in there and do whatever it is that's necessary. But some people are really afraid of what it looks like to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. We have people that just don't accept the disease. We have some people who are undereducated, who don't understand how difficult it could be, right? So those are different things that could, eventually affect some relationships. What you should do is make sure that you are always reaching out. Make sure that you acknowledge, the support that you have, and the friendships and the relationships that you have as well. Consider inviting some friends or family members over. Consider talking to them and educating them about this disease, and also offering some tips to prepare them for when they visit. I know the association has some courses that have been taught about being able to provide joy through the holidays and how that works. How do you celebrate your holidays with someone who has Alzheimer's disease or dementia? So there are resources for that as well, so that everybody can be together and be a part of celebrating those really joyous times. Another change that caregivers experience is intimacy. Um, Intimacy is described here as being physical or emotional closeness between two people. And as this disease progresses, it can be difficult to witness that you may not have the same emotional or physical intimacy with the person that's living with the disease as before. Um, And I know that in my professional realm, I have seen that a lot, where the individual with dementia no longer has a relationship with their child, or they may not recognize their child anymore. They may not recognize their spouse, or their sibling, um, and or the way that the disease takes a toll on their body, they may just not have that trust, anymore as well. So those things do occur, but you can find new ways to be intimate. There can be non-sexual touching, like holding hands or hugging. Um, you can do activities that you all both enjoy, like listening to music, going for walks. Reminiscence and talking about memories is good as well. I often like to utilize just being present, being in the same space. Sometimes I've been able to find that people are just comfortable if they're comfortable with you in general or just with your spirit, right? That sometimes just being in that space and being the calm in the situation is more than enough for them. So we're going to take a second so we can hear from a caregiver here who shares her experience with us.
When I think about caregiving for my dad, who's been living with Alzheimer's disease for 13 years, my expectation is not that my dad is going to remember my birthday or know how old I am, but I'm pretty confident that if I show up at his place in his memory care assisted living with some cake, light a candle, and tell him, Dad, today is my birthday, he's gonna smile, give me a hug, and want to enjoy some cake with me. And so that gives me a glimpse into that love and that connection that's still there between us as father and daughter. I've had to realign my expectations, but that has allowed me to be more present and available for these happy and connective moments between us.
All right. So we've heard from our caregiver. Now we're going to enter this section of person-centered approaches to care. So person-centered approaches. This form of care focuses on the individual and their specific needs. So it involves using what you know about the things that they like and dislike, and also what they're capable of during the time to make sure that you can give them the best possible care. The benefits for the person that's living with dementia in this approach is that we often get fewer dementia-related behaviors, which also may lower the need for medications to treat certain symptoms. There's ideally less boredom and feelings of helplessness. We get lower levels of agitation and an increase in happiness and a sense of well-being. The benefits for caregivers that there's more confidence in addressing dementia-related communication and behavioral changes. Um, there's increased satisfaction of being a caregiver, improved relationship with the person that's living with the disease, and a better quality of life for you and the person in your care. So I wanted to be able to stop for a second so I could share a little story about that. I had a individual that I provided personal care for. I did overnight shifts as a caregiver to be able to get that experience. And at night, my client would want to brush her teeth. And this is one of her favorite things. Her teeth were her pride and joy, right? And as she went through this disease process, there were other abilities that she lost that I had to compensate for as the caregiver. So during the showers, I'm providing all of that care. And that can be a lot of work, being able to provide assistance with the activity of daily living, like bathing, like toileting. But some of the ability that she did keep was being able to take care of her teeth. So she had a step-by-step process. And as the caregiver, sometimes we might get in our own way because they have these skills that are still present. And this is why it's important to make sure that we focus on that person-centered approach. We want to be able to preserve what we can and allow them to do what they can within reason and within safety guidelines. So I allowed that space. If she's comfortable still doing this routine, or even if they forget the steps, I would set up everything how she would have it normally, and then she'd start that process and be able to get moving through that. And it was really great because she had her sense of independence that was there, but also that took a little bit off of me as I was providing other portions of care for her. Um, so when looking at how we're going to provide that care, oh, wait, Stephanie, you raised
No,
a
go
hand?
on and finish, and then I
Okay.
wanted to jump in a sec.
Okay, yeah, so just in looking at how we would provide that care, you would want to make sure that you know this person, know what their um, what their skill set is, know what their levels of independence are, what they're capable of. Make sure that you're connecting with them in that moment. You want to make sure that you help take part in some of those meaningful activities and continue to focus on your relationship and be supportive to them at the same time. And that usually does make for a well-rounded, person-centered experience. Stephanie, you
Yeah,
had a
I did.
question?
I did. I also think that when you are paying attention and kind of noticing what things they can and cannot do, it also helps them to remain a little bit independent and not solely putting everything on the caregiver. So I think it just kind of helps balance the two. And then I also wanted to find out if anybody had any questions because you've given us a lot of good tips and information as well as your personal experiences. So if anybody has anything that they would like to share or a question or comment, please feel free to let us know. So I just wanted to pause a minute because you have
Yeah,
been just rolling.
I really get into it. So yes, please. Any
Yeah.
questions, anything you guys have, let us know.
Okay, keep going. If there's somebody,
Okay.
raise your hand or either put it in the chat. We'll look for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oops. All right. So, in these strategies, the five strategies that we just talked about, we'll just walk through those kind of slowly. So, make sure that you use your knowledge of the person. You might know a person better than anyone, but you may need to learn even more about them to provide the best possible care. I think that this is very true. And in some instances where we're extremely close, let's say it's a mother and daughter, and you feel like you know everything about this person because I came from them, I've lived with them, I've known them my whole life. And there's so many new things to learn about that person when they're going through this disease process. There's also a lot of hidden things that we might not have known, um, that we end up finding out like during this time. So making sure that you craft their care to not just what you knew about them from the past, but about what you're learning about them currently, that's going to be incredibly important. You want to consider what makes them unique. Let's look at their values, their beliefs, things that they're interested in, what they're capable of, things that they like or don't like. All of those things are going to encompass what is going to make them unique and will ultimately potentially alter that care. You want to keep in mind that their hobbies and interests could change. Um, that is common. I think that I've seen that, and that's always been interesting. It's always good to see the things that they like and to get them engaged with those, but also being able to acknowledge new interests. One thing that I had noticed working in nursing homes was changes in diet, which was pretty funny. So being able to look at someone who just absolutely hated sweets, was not a sweet person whatsoever, and then they switch all of a sudden. Or music or different activities that they begin to like that they didn't like or didn't engage in before. Some people tend to be more social in the disease process, while others are very withdrawn during their disease process. So those things will affect them as well.
Arnisha, we have a question in the
Yeah.
chat. The question is, how do you handle habits that aren't good for them during this stage, like drinking or smoking, and what are methods to use to help them say no without kind of triggering them?
Okay. The first thing would be that for whatever the habit may be, that you want to make sure that you're connecting with a provider. Always, always, always speak to a medical professional about these things. Um, in some settings, and my background is long-term care, but I've also done this on a personal level. But in some settings, things like drinking or smoking may be something that is still acceptable, like, for their lifestyle. It's going to depend though. Everybody is different. So there's not really a clear answer to give on that. What I would say is that if anything looks like it's becoming harmful, for example, if you have somebody that smokes cigarettes all the time, um, and they get to a point where they are wanting to smoke, but they can't light it correctly, or they're lighting cigarettes and then they're not putting them out, or they're potentially causing fires, things like that, like you definitely want to start to figure out what might be a good supplement. In that case, there's plenty of people at that time who might use nicotine patches. I know that in some of the nursing home settings that I've been in, that's been an option, among other things as well. So you would want to talk to a provider, obviously talk to the insurance company, things like that, figure out what might be covered for that individual. Um, but you definitely want to start there. I would start with talking to a medical professional about that piece. And then taking in all of that information, that should be able to help you to make a decision on what might be the safest plan of action.
I'll jump in a little bit. I care for my uncle, and he has always smoked all of his life. And And he admittedly says I'm not stopping. So so I talked to his doctor just to see, is this going to impact him any way? And he was in on the conversation, and the doctor said it was okay considering his condition. But what we did come up with is maybe limiting the amount of cigarettes that you smoke. So I know he's going to do it, and I feel like I'm supporting the habit, but yet and still we have some, I'll say, some kind of rules around it, which are helpful because he also said, this is what I enjoy doing. I'm 90, so let me do what I want to do. So when I
Yeah.
look at it like that, you try to meet them halfway if you can. So I think everybody's situation is different, but I do say start with the doctor just to make sure that there's not a medical issue that's going to cause an issue. But if you can meet them halfway, meet them, meet them halfway. I'm not crazy about it, but it is what it is.
Absolutely, I agree. I was looking at the second part of this too. So, what are the
Uh-huh.
methods to use to say no without triggering them? Um, whew. I think that sometimes it may not always be a no. I prefer not to give yes or no responses. Um, what I would like to do is look at the situation for what it is, and if it doesn't seem like it's something that's going to be safe, try to redirect. Um, Redirection is something that I think typically can work. Um, I think also like being in the environment where certain activities might be taking place. Um, if they're not capable of doing those things anymore, that might be something that would be beneficial. I know that I had a client once that I cared for who also used to smoke. And when he would start to get agitated, he just wanted to be present, like in the smoke room, even though he wasn't capable of smoking anymore. He did not process being able to like hold cigarettes or anything like that anymore. It was just being in that space, the smell, the environment, it made a difference. And then it actually helped to eliminate some of his behaviors. Everybody's different. But everybody like will have something specific that's going to need to be catered to them. So, and like Stephanie was saying too, making sure that you're checking in with that provider is definitely going to be the key, to being able to figure out how you can avoid that conversation, and ultimately avoid triggering them. All right. So our second strategy here, connecting in the moment. Connecting with the person in the moment can help you find out what they need, and this will also give you the right support. So you want to try to see the world through their eyes so that this can help you understand their feelings. It helps you to be able to see and accept their reality, which is most likely going to be different from yours. And you want to focus on feelings, not facts, with this disease. There's a certain point in their disease process where you can't reason with decision making. Um, and that's okay. But we, as the caregiver, have to understand that they're not going to be able to reason with us to make that judgment call and accept that they cannot do that. It is not a act of defiance. It is not being stubborn, even if you have that loved one who has always been stubborn, who's always fought you. I can assure you that in a lot of ways, once there's no decision making ability, like when it comes down to things like safety, that's not something that's being done on purpose. It is actually a part of that process. So we have to be able to approach those situations understanding how they feel. And though the fact may be you absolutely shouldn't be walking, you need to sit in your wheelchair, right? We have to be able to understand how that makes them feel and figure out how to redirect them in that moment. And like it says here, if a topic bothers or upsets them, switch to another one. And that could be in conversations, it could be activities. Something may be frustrating that you guys might be doing together. That's the time to intervene and to switch up, what's taking place in that moment to try and alleviate that behavior. Three, help make activities meaningful. So every experience and interaction is a chance for you to connect with the person that's living with dementia. So you want to make sure that every activity has meaning and purpose. As we stated earlier, you want to take into account what they're capable of at that time, the things that they like or dislike. You want to give choices to help them feel respected and also successful in this. I do want to touch on that point and say when you give choices, you want to minimize the choices that you give. Too many choices at one time can be very overwhelming to somebody that's going through this disease process. So, one or two options typically is a really good amount to give them that's going to empower them to make their own decision, but it also doesn't start to overwhelm in the situation. Know that the person can feel joy, comfort, and meaning even when dementia is advanced. I can assure you that in my field, I have learned they definitely still feel loved. They still feel independent in some ways. As long as we give those opportunities, it really does help to decrease hopelessness and helps them to feel that they have something to look forward to. And this one, the ultimate one, the one that I think many of us are struggling with is going with the flow. You do not have to plan every activity ahead of time. And in fact, many times you're not going to be able to. This is a disease process that is difficult for everyone to manage, but as somebody who is very detail oriented and planning focus and forward focus on always having the plan and always sticking to the schedule. Learning this group of individuals was a process for me to be able to understand that I might have a schedule and I have places that I need to be, but in the moment, whatever is going on with them is going to trump that. They may not be able to go with me and my schedule. I now have to be able to cater to theirs, which is why it's going to be really important for you all to develop support systems so that you can manage your own expectations and things that you need to take care of, but also so that their time and their space and their care is also being respected. Number four, focus on a supportive relationship. So person-centered care means putting the person before the task. Be flexible and supportive during your daily caregiving responsibilities, which is what we were just talking about. Um, Encourage the independence. That is going to be key. Whatever that they are capable of during that time, let's go ahead and focus on that. Do activities with them instead of for them. That is a good thing for them. It is also a very good thing for you. A clear example would be doing laundry. So I might throw things into the wash and pull them out of the dryer, and then the person I'm caring for, your responsibility is going to be folding these. And it's one of those habits, right? That if I set a piece of clothing or a towel in front of someone, the automatic response is going to be starting to fold that and to put that away. And so that might be the time to, if you know that that is something that they're going to be drawn to, then give them a task. And it's okay to give them a task. And that also takes a little bit off of you because you're allowing them to be independent, but you're also not taking that away and you're able to focus on other things during that time. So let's hear from one of the experts here.
Caregiving can be difficult, but each day presents us with opportunities and challenges. So it's really important to celebrate those small wins, like providing just the right amount of support to have somebody successfully get dressed by themselves or brush their teeth or even set the table for dinner. Everything that happens throughout the day can be considered an activity. Little things like setting the table or going for a walk and talking about family, or even spontaneously dancing to some music are all things that happen throughout the day and time well spent.
All right. And strategy number five, creating a supportive environment. This helps a person living with dementia to be successful and independent for as long as possible. You want to talk about what that supportive environment is supposed to mean to them. I definitely don't recommend just doing this on your own. Involve them as much as possible. A lot of times they're more than capable of being able to tell you what it is that they want, or these might be things that you already know from the past, knowing about what they may want. Think about changes that might need to be in the home to increase safety. Sometimes that might mean I need to, switch them just to this lower level of the house so that they're not taking stairs. Um, there could be all kinds of changes that we would be looking at to make sure that they're safe. Suggest activities that they like. Keep favorite items where they can easily see them. I have somebody that I care for right now who has a stuffed otter, and they love otters. They love it. They love just everything that they embody because it reminds them of being in the water, and they love water. Um, if that otter moves, we have a problem. So making sure that it's always in reach, always available, it's a comfort piece to them. That's really important. Create a calm and a soothing environment, whatever that might mean to the individual. For some people, it's a lot of noise. For others, it is no noise at all. Look at what they might need and make those adjustments accordingly. And then make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Um, this is a very demanding role to be in. And it is not easy, and it's not meant to be easy, and none of us can be Superwoman or Superman in this situation. So make sure that you're asking friends and family for help if you feel stressed or you need a break. Um, I also want to recognize that there's probably people on the call or in the community who don't have friends or family that are readily available, who may have people that live far away, or maybe you don't have family or you don't have friend support. There are organizations that you can work with to be able to get some respite care, to be able to get a break. Which we are also, you can always look through owls.org and be able to get connected with other individuals who can help you and provide some of those services so that those companies can also be a part of your support system. Haha, which is what we're talking about next, building a support team. The support team is a group of people who help you with the care of the responsibilities over the course of the disease. So when you have this team together, you're able to get more done with your day. You're able to stay active in your own life. You're able to take care of yourself. You lower your stress. Your team is able to be there and be able to step in where there's too much to do or help out in those emergency situations. So who to include? You want to really think about the people that you can trust and rely on. Um, Now, also consider that that care team can change over time, especially as that disease progresses. But those possible team members might be family members, friends, they could be neighbors. Like I said, also other companies can be involved as well with that care. You have doctors, including neurologists, counselors, other specialists, volunteers from other organizations, faith-based communities, so involving your church family as well. That's important. And then, of course, staying in touch with different communities like Owls Connected. There are also support groups that you all can be a part of as well with other individuals who may be going through these things or who have gone through them before, who can also be a support to you, whether that be physically being in the same space or as an emotional support. So you really want to take the time to think about what kind of help you need and talk to all of the people that you want to be a part of your team. You want to be specific in letting them know what help you absolutely need right now and possible help that you might need down the line. Um, it's understandable that in the beginning stages that you may underestimate what you might need or you may overdo what you might need, and it's okay. There's a little bit of give and take there. It's an adjustment period. We're not going to know everything that we need because this disease is not predictable on a grand scale. Everyone that goes through Alzheimer's disease or other form of dementia is going through a completely different process from the next person. There is no respected person here. So it can be difficult. There are some general things that you might want to be able to provide, but overall, you have to do it according to that individual to make it successful. And then make sure that with your support team that you're showing them appreciation. Make sure that you thank them for what help they are able to provide.
Can I pause just a second, Anisha?
Yeah.
Any questions, any comments, thoughts? You can put it in the chat, or even if you want to come off of mute. Um, you touched on a lot of great things, and formulating your team is really essential. So the main caregiver can get some support and some relief Identify
You do have a
people.
question in the chat that says, how do you handle dealing with a consumer that has a habit that is not good for them during this stage, drinking or smoking? What are the methods to use to say no without triggering them? Is that
Yeah,
something you've covered?
yeah, we answered that one. Thank you, though. Do you see any more questions?
Um,
I think that's
Uh,
it.
I don't know if we lost I don't know if we lost Carla, but no, there are no new questions in the chat.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, just keep going. As you guys get questions, pop them in the chat, let us know.
Okay,
Um, but just some things to think about in general. Think about two people that you might want to be a part of your support team. And think about what the type of help is that you may need from them, whether it be needing help with, them picking up groceries or medications or providing that care. Maybe it's transportation. I know that when I had mentioned earlier in the presentation that I provided virtual caregiving for my grandfather, that helped my mom out a great deal because she was providing the ADL support and was the help on the ground. Um, because he enjoyed being on Skype so much with me, it was okay, well, let's go ahead and provide that space and that time for him so that he can actually have that time with me, but also she gets a break. So she's able to go and take a nap or go take care of herself for a little while I take over for a couple hours and just spend time that way. And that's always great for emotional support. It could be great for, other forms of support as well. It looks like we have a hand raised by Kelly Ward.
Yes, good morning. This is all very good information. I was in a conversation just this morning uh, regarding your support team, and we were talking about um, even if that support that you get is for you personally versus the person you're caring for, because sometimes, especially dealing with loved ones, there are some things that we can't or don't want to relinquish to others. Maybe we want to
Yes.
do it for them ourselves. But we were talking about get some help with your own personal tasks. And that'll free
Yes.
up time for you to attend to your loved one. What do you think about that?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that it's one of the only ways to be successful with processing and getting through this, is you have to be able to take care of yourself. So I see no problem with that whatsoever. I can tell you that even as somebody who's done formal caregiving, it's a lot. Of course, as a formal caregiver, you're getting paid for the things that you're doing, but it can also be very burdensome. And so by the end of that shift, whether you're formal or informal as a caregiver, you're burnt out, you're tired, you have to find ways to rejuvenate yourself. It might mean that somebody just stops by and they're bringing you coffee in the morning. It could be anything. It can be small, it can be grand. I think that providing that support and that emotional safe space is key. Being able to rely on people during that time just to give you that really goes a long way. All right, we got a couple of other hands raised
hands up.
here.
Shanita,
Good morning. I want to piggyback uh, on what Kelly, the question she had asked. I can relate to that. I'm a caregiver for my mom, and I am an only child. And my mom, she doesn't want anybody coming in her house doing anything for her, just me. But she also has early stages of dementia. And then I had to make the decision because I was really feeling run down. I was not taking care of myself. So I had to hire someone to come and help me at my house. And I felt so much better that I had to talk to my mom and tell her I need to have this person come in and help me at your house. I cannot do it all. So I did that. And something else that I did to help me, because my mom and I, we live just two houses in between us. So I'm at my mom's house 3 or 4 times a day. So my daughter told me, she said, Mom, have you thought about putting ring cameras in mom's house? So I did. And just like I'm on here now, uh, online, I can see my mom on my phone with the ring cameras. I can see what she's doing. I can talk to her. She just can't see me. But invest in ring cameras if you're a caregiver and a loved one does not is not living with you. You can see and monitor that way as well.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that makes perfect sense. I love the camera idea, and I've also dealt with that too, and like had families with cameras. Sometimes people have used, if you're in the same house, even like using baby monitors, um,
Mhm.
anything to be able to hear like what might be going on in that room is crucial, and it really does give you that peace of mind. And peace of mind is everything while going through this process. So whatever that might mean. And I know you were saying, I didn't want to have to bring in these people into the house because she only wanted me. I'm an only child. And I can tell you that when it comes down to my mom's care and things, she does not want anybody in our space at all. I don't want anybody. It is only you. You're the only one I want down the line for my care. And I know that that is not going to be possible. And I also know that there's enough love and respect there that when I make that decision to say, I have to have this support so that I can be here for you, that that will be respected in that space. And so making that change sounds like it's going to be difficult. And sometimes it really is because you want to be able to meet them with that wish, but ultimately their safety, their well-being, their quality of life is so much more important than that initial need for privacy. And ultimately, they get everything that they need and they have a fuller life with all of those things involved. So, of course, there's ways to do it to be able to stay discreet and still give them the sense of privacy that they need in that. But I absolutely love everything that you just said.
Yeah. Thank you, Shanita. We have another hand. Candace?
Hi, yes. Thank you for sharing your experience, Shanita. I can absolutely relate to everything that you were talking about. We lost my godmother in June, and we had to use cameras. We had the talking pill box, every type of assistance device that we could use to keep her safe in the home for as long as possible, and then also still be able to provide care. And also, sharing that you were caring for your grandfather virtually. Also, agree that that is a way that families everywhere can get involved. I served as a caregiver for my grandfather who was in Georgia. So every doctor's appointment, because I work in healthcare, every doctor's appointment I attended, virtually to assist my grandmother and my mother in being able to navigate all the words and terms and what to use. So anything that we do just to be of assistance. And also just wanted to point out that it is important that as we're caring for others, we have to also pour into ourselves. There are so many resources available for respite care. And even though our loved ones fight against having that assistance, I've often seen that once they get used to, accustomed to having the assistance, and everything seems to work out. You just have to take that step. Of course, they're going to say no. Of course, they're going to, fight against it. But at some point, you have to make a decision that you know is going to be the best for you and for them. So, as much as we don't want to be defiant, sometimes
You
we
have
have
to
to
do
make
it.
that we have to make that tough decision and say, you know what, I think I'm gonna have to overrule this one, and we need to get some help in here, or I need a break, and we need to get some other family in here, temporarily, just so I can go and care for myself. So um don't stop also being and thinking about yourself and caring for your needs so that you can continue to be of assistance to your loved ones.
Yes. And don't think that you have to choose just anyone. Be selfish about this. It is perfectly fine to be selfish and to be very, very specific about the needs of the person you're caring for and what you're comfortable with and what they're comfortable with. Don't stop until you find the person that is the right fit. If it's so, I know that we have family caregivers that are involved, but let's say you have to bring in services, you have to bring in somebody to kind of house sit and to be a companion. You find the right companion. There's plenty of companies that allow you the space to, hey, here's all of our caregivers based off of this and what they're dealing with and what they like and dislike. This is the match that we think will work. Let's try it. And it's perfectly fine to say, hey, you know what, this is not the one. This is not, what we thought. Can we try somebody else until you get that perfect match?
Mm.
So it's perfectly normal to be able to do something like that. I know that for me as a caregiver, when I took care of my client in home, we shared the same field. That's what I love about some of the companies that I've worked with is we both have backgrounds in gerontology. So I understand what's going through, like what's happening during this process. And she knew prior to that disease process what that process was like. I also know how to operate in her space because I operate the same way. I'm not somebody that's going to want a whole lot of noise around. I'm, fairly quiet in that space. And also looking at like similarities that we might have, it made us a perfect match for each other. So when I was caregiving for her, I'm in my early 20s and she's in her 80s, right? But we made a perfect match. So make sure that you are hustling to be able to figure out who that might be and not just accepting any help that comes by. Ultimately, it's going to make for that quality to be built and for that person-centered care to be a lot stronger.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everyone sharing, Shanita, Candace. I can relate to the things that you're saying, and I'm also an only child, so sometimes you feel like you're in it by yourself. But Ornisha, you mentioned a lot of good resources and just vetting them and see what the best fit is, even if it's a facility. I know sometimes people don't want to go down that avenue, but it might be adult daycare. But check out what facilities offer and what services they offer because that could be a part of your team. It might not be something you do every day, but it could be a week or a month that you just take off and let's see how it works. And if it
Yeah.
works good, okay. If not, go back to the drawing board and see what works because sometimes it doesn't always work for somebody to come into the home. Maybe a cost factor, you just never know. So
Yeah.
just kind of weigh all your options. But this is good stuff. Thank you all. I appreciate everyone being willing to share. Shanita, Shanita.
Thing. First, I want to thank Stephanie and AKA and Friendly Temple. I've been attending the caregivers workshops for 5 years. I met Stephanie 5 years ago through the St. Louis American newspaper. It was an ad in the paper talking about the caregivers workshop. And I called Stephanie, got tears in my eyes, and Stephanie called me back. And you don't know how much you have changed my life, Stephanie, through this program and the times when I call you and you've been there for me. I have learned so much from this caregivers program. I cannot thank you enough for all that you do for others and you have done to change my life for the better for this journey that I'm on. Thank you and I love you.
I love you too, Shanita. You know I'm crying. I'm a big baby. So, thank you. And I'm so happy it helps because this is what it's about. When my family and I were challenged with my dad, we were just overwhelmed. And when we finally got out of it and could see a little bit clearer, I just felt like other families must be going through this too. What can we do to help? And just one thing after another. And for you to say 5 years, that just blesses my heart. As you all know, this is very dear to my heart because it's families out there suffering and they need help and they need resources. So this is what it's about. I love you, Shanika. Thank you. I'll be up here all day talking. So go ahead, Arnisha.
Me too. But I completely understand. So we'll kind of go into some of this part. I know we've been talking a lot about caring for yourself already, so let's just kind of get through that. It'll probably be us mostly skimming, but dementia caregivers are less likely to experience anxiety and depression than other caregivers. Let's go with false on this one. Caregivers of people living with dementia are, in fact, more likely to experience anxiety and depression than non-dementia caregivers. They're also more likely to experience financial and physical difficulties. So these are some of our warning signs here for caregiver stress. The first, denial. I know some of these are going to be pretty in alignment with something else that we're familiar with. So denial, anger, social withdrawal, anxiety, depression, exhaustion, sleep problems, irritability, lack of focus, and health problems. To me, a lot of those warning signs also fall in line with the signs of grief. And I think it's important to recognize that when we are going through this caregiving process, the best way that I feel is the way to describe this is that you are going through the stages of grief and you're going through it frequently. Every change, every new stage that occurs with this disease is a new phase of grief. We are constantly grieving the person that we once knew while having to accept the person that they've become. And with those stages comes a new set in for grief. That also causes all of these other things to occur in us, beginning to withdraw because even though this disease is so prominent, nobody could possibly understand what I'm going through right now. And I don't want to be around anybody else because they don't understand what I'm going through or they can't handle what it is that I'm going through because it's too hard for me to handle what I'm going through, right? So all of these warning signs that are here, we need to make sure that we're staying in tune with ourselves enough to recognize that we are having these experiences so that we can be proactive in dealing with them. You want to make sure that you take care of yourself because stress can lead to so many issues. Pay attention for signs like blurred vision, stomach irritation, high blood pressure, appetite changes, sleeplessness, all of that. Be conscious of those things. You want to make sure that you find relaxing techniques for you. So this could be breathing exercises or meditation. You want to talk about those symptoms with a provider as you need to. Um, Relaxation could mean anything, whatever it is that is your niche, that is your thing to do. It's very common as the caregiver to drop hobbies, right? It's very common to step away from those things. For me, I do archery and I love it. I practice, I do it solo. I'm not a part of a team or a league or anything. I do archery on my own. And as a caregiver, you are so absorbed with providing the care and the quality that you forget the things that are going to bring you joy and the things that are going to help to refuel you. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to what that might be for you, and try those things out and try to make sure that you stay in tune with those. Be realistic. I love this. Grieve the losses. Focus on enjoying your positives. You need to be able to process this grief as you go along. Um, Ultimately, we know that with this disease process, we end up losing our loved ones. There is nothing wrong with taking care of those grief steps now and being able to talk to someone and begin working through those things rather than holding on to them until death. I firmly believe in taking care of yourself, like in that grief process, and that it's okay to experience all of those things. We just want to make sure that we don't stay stuck in them. We want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. So, um, understand that you're doing your best with what information you have. There are people that haven't had the experience or the knowledge, or the classes to be able to understand how to deal with how we manage the issues that are occurring day to day, or how to deal with behaviors or irritability from the person that you're taking care of. You're doing the best with the knowledge that you have. So focus on acquiring more knowledge so that you can be better. That's it. No harm done, right? Make sure that you're taking care of your health. Go and see your doctor and listen to your body. Your body is giving you signs and symptoms. It's telling you what it's going through and it's also telling you what it needs. So make sure that you are paying attention to those messages. Make sure that you take breaks. We can't do it by ourselves. So, like we talked about respite a couple of times through this call, whether it's family, if it is rehab facilities, whatever it might be, figure out what you need to do to make sure that you take your breaks and understand that the break is not selfish. Or sorry, it is, but it isn't. It's not negatively selfish, right? The break is necessary. If you are the one providing the care, you cannot give from an empty cup. It doesn't matter how strong your background is. It doesn't matter what your family dynamics are. I know for my family and being African American and being women, there is this heavy pressure to be the family caregiver, and you are the sole person that they come to, and you're the sole person responsible for doing all of these things to make it work. But sometimes family members and friends don't understand that you can't be the strong one all the time. You have to be able to step away. So make time for yourself so you can step away. Otherwise, there may be damage that occurs to where you may not be the one who's in the best shape to be that caregiver anymore. So you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. When you take care of yourself and you provide that quality and that time for yourself, you're able to funnel all of that back into the individual that you're caring for. Let's hear from another caregiver here.
The advice I would have for others about caregiving is to be kind to yourself, be gentle to yourself, allow yourself to make some errors. Don't judge yourself so hard. Take good care of yourself, eat well, exercise, interact with people outside of the household. Do things that are just for you. Go out to eat sometimes. Go out to eat with a friend or maybe alone. But remember that you have to be the best you in order to take care of your loved one. So it is very, very important that you take care of yourself.
All right, and there is a take-home activity that is in the guide here, talking about managing caregiver stress. So you want to try and figure out what you're going to do to begin to reduce your stress. So in your time at home, start to think about what that might mean for you. If that means you need to sit down and schedule your appointments for yourself, do that. If that means you need to figure out, what the right foods are going to be for you or finding some relaxation techniques, um, whatever it might be, take the time to focus on what you need so that you can get those things done. And you want to make a key plan for yourself to make sure that you're always focused on reducing that stress. It's important also to make sure that you go through those warning signs that we had talked about earlier. If you think that you're experiencing anger or anxiety, depression, exhaustion, take those things into account and then start to funnel that into the plan. And think about how you want to take care of your health, both physical and mental, and what resources you need and or what resources you want to use to be able to make sure that you can indeed make sure that you are ready to go when it comes to working through this process. There are also benefits to being a caregiver. So I know we've talked about how burdensome it is, but I also want to be able to share a little bit of that with you. So we're going to hear from another caregiver here.
My mom loves to hug. We're huggers. And so my mom is very much, and even now, she will, they're getting into bed at night. You gonna give me a kiss tonight? Can I get a kiss? And she'll kiss me. But often what keeps me pumped and what keeps me going as well, my mom tells me, I don't care what type of day or what she's done, she often says to me, I love you so much. Thank you for taking care of me. And that means, especially there's sometimes when it's been a hard, long day. And at the end of that day, she'll look up and she'll say, thank you so much. I appreciate you for taking care of me. And that makes it all worth it. It's like everything else, nothing else matters. It's like, hey, you know what? And that's the best feeling in the world, because when you're caring for somebody who can't necessarily tell you what's going on, to have them to say, I love you, I appreciate you, it makes it all worth it, because it lets you know that you're doing something right.
All right, so we have some Alzheimer's Association resources just so that you all have these. Keep in mind that we do have a 24/7 helpline. We have our Missouri chapter, which is off of Old Cabin Road. And if you guys need instructions when it comes to being able to find it, let us know. You could also go to owls.org to be able to find that. We also have our OWS Connected and our OWS Navigator to where you guys can look at different resources that might be available. And then we still have other educational programs too, both in person and virtual, that are very beneficial to supporting you through this process. Stephanie, I am just wanting to check and see how are we doing on time so far?
It is 11:13, so you have a few more minutes. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but yeah, we have,
Yes. Does
anybody have
anybody
any
have questions?
comments or want to share? Getting everybody just a few minutes if you had a question or comment that you wanted to make. Thank you, Arnisha. I mean, this information was so helpful. I was taking notes and I really like the tips. Let me grab my notes. When you said, try not to say yes or no, but trying to find some options, maybe one or two. So those are
Yeah,
things I'm definitely going to try to do with my uncle because he, I needed to figure it out. So thank you for that. Anybody else want to share or have any questions? We've got something in the chat. This was great information, great information. Thank you for sharing. So yeah, it was really good. If we don't have anything else, giving back the gift of time is wonderful. We get 15 more minutes to your day. And thank you again, Arnisha, just sharing your story and being available to assist us. I appreciate you. And thank you
absolutely.
everyone for joining and spending your Saturday in the comfort of your home. Hopefully you were warm, bundled up as you were listening. If you're getting back out in those streets at some point, make sure you stay warm and be careful driving. Thank you so much for joining, and we will be back the third Saturday of February. Hopefully we'll be in person. If not, we will